wounded Russians are being sent back to Ukraine with major injuries like punctured lungs and shrapnel still in their bodies, report says.
Here's a summary of the article.
Severely injured Russian soldiers are being returned to the front line in Ukraine without the approval of military doctors, independent Russian news outlet Agency STVO reported on Thursday. In one instance, 2 Russian soldiers with punctured lungs were sent into combat, instead of to a military medical commission for examination, Valentina Melnikova, executive secretary of the Union of the Committees of Soldiers' Mothers of Russia, said, per Agency STVO. Soldiers with shrapnel wounds were returned to fight, without the shrapnel being removed, according to a translation of the article by independent media outlet Meduza. There are an unacceptable number of documented cases of commanders sidestepping military doctors and instead sending wounded soldiers straight from the hospital to the front line, Melnikova told Agency STVO, per a Meduza translation. There have also been cases of soldiers receiving treatment for ulcers, heart attacks, and strokes being sent back to Ukraine, she said. We learned of a situation in which fighters who had received high-tech medical care with recommendations for rehabilitation and follow-up care were sent straight to the front instead of rehabilitation, Demicheva said. In November, Army General Mark Milley, the highest-ranking U.S. military officer, estimated that well over 100,000 Russian soldiers had been killed or wounded in the war in Ukraine, according to the Washington Post.
This post received a score of 7,600, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Russia, can we get more soldiers? Putin, we have soldiers at home.
We learned of a situation in which fighters who had received high-tech medical care with recommendations for rehabilitation and follow-up care were sent straight to the front instead of rehabilitation, Demichova said. Insanity.
Greater than insanity. Well, try to see it from Russian leadership perspective. The only use for their meat is to try to clog the meat grinder. So it doesn't matter if the meat is fresh, spoiled, or rancid. They are sending people to their death anyway, so who cares if they are half dead already? No. In fact, it makes more sense to throw in the rancid meat first. That's why it goes draft dodger, disabled, ethnic undesirables, convict, regular infantry, elite, all of Russia, huge fucking gap, Putin. If they die, they don't need to be paid.
Better yet, you don't report their death and pocket their salary. In Russia, salaries are sent to battalion commanders to distribute to the men, so they have a financial incentive to delay reporting losses for a little bit. Aside from propaganda, it's likely one of the reasons why Russian officials underreport losses so significantly. They actually aren't being told.
That is why Putin says they only lost like 6,000 men or so. I don't understand it. The reports say they have killed hundreds of thousands with barely any losses, destroyed hundreds of HIMARS, but we are still somehow not advancing.
You go tell him the war is going poorly because you sold all the equipment years ago to buy a promotion.
And you do so while leaping out of a 10th floor window onto some bullets. And then your replacement is told to take the non-existing equipment and the non-existing troops and go conquer a city with them. Which he does. Or at least, claims that he did.
1984 actually looks kinda tame now.
Reminds me more of Fahrenheit 451, where there was a war subplot where the citizens think their side is winning until the city gets nuked at the end.
Makes sense, as it's cheaper to let them die than not pay the family rather than some half-decent medical care.
Russia has widow payments. Injured troops are being sent back to the front line to be called Mia when they met their demise. They don't want to pay 10,000 United States dollars per body. All members of the families of military personnel who died during the special military operation in Ukraine, Putin's term for the war in Ukraine, ED, will be allocated insurance coverage and one-time assistance in the amount of 7,421,000 rubles. Monthly monetary compensations will also be paid to each family member of fallen soldiers.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.